I do not believe in booing college athletes, especially because they do not get paid. Hopefully that will change this year. The main reason I do not boo them is because before and after they reach the college game, they are ultimately still kids. We only hear about the positive stories, the ones that make it to the NFL. We also hear about the college athletes that bust out of the NFL after successful college careers, like Johnny Manziel and Ryan Leaf. Only 1.6% of college football players make it to the NFL, and the percentage is even lower for those that make it a successful career path. Before these kids can reach the NFL, they must go through the grind of playing football in high school and or junior college while trying to qualify academically and mature at the same time. Then the transition to college must occur. Before these kids can reach the NFL, they must go through the grind of playing football in high school and or junior college while trying to qualify academically and mature at the same time. Then the transition to college must occur. These kids must decide on where they will go to school, sometimes coming from a small town or small high school or a city that hardly produces college-level athletes. Going from playing high school football in Canyon, Texas to playing football at Texas A&M can be a culture shock, and the player must have highly regarded maturity and decision-making or solid mentorship to transition successfully to the college lifestyle. Sometimes this kid is just too young and mentally immature to handle this lifestyle change. Sometimes they are not used to being a small fish in a big pond. Rather, they are used to being the big fish in a small pond. They are used to dominating and outworking their peers. Sometimes all it takes is one mistake for it to spiral out of control. This is the story of Andress Jones. Andress Jones attended Andress High School in El Paso, Texas. He was said to have the work ethic of a pro, showing up to fall workouts at 6 a.m. Andress did have some family issues as his mom and stepdad had Indianapolis, Indiana during Andress' sophomore season. This put Andress in the care of his aunt. This would partially motivate Andress to want to leave El Paso. The impressive thing about Andress, even with these issues, is that he had the work ethic not only to outwork his peers, but to graduate from high school early. Andress had the size at 6'4" and 295 pounds. In El Paso High School football, that is a monster of a man. He stood out significantly, paired with a laid-back personality. He wanted to play in the NFL and was motivated by that aspiration. Andress averaged 82 tackles and 2 sacks as a defensive tackle at Andress. Andress was considered the best athlete to come out of El Paso since Rufus Brown and was considered one of the top 2 players in the entire state of Texas as a junior. He was considered a 4-star prospect, 103rd best overall prospect in the nation, the 11th defensive tackle, and the 15th best player in the state of Texas by 247 Sports. He is also one of 3 players ever out of El Paso to be named to the Parade All-American team. This type of prospect was exceedingly rare to see come out of El Paso, which has previously produced players like Aaron Jones, the running back for the Green Bay Packers, Dominique Hamilton, Mickens, and Bryan Young. Nothing to the potential caliber of Andress Jones, though. Andress Jones was destined for greatness. He received interest from Texas, Notre Dame, Northwestern, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and UTEP, the local university. Andress ultimately committed to the Longhorns after considering Notre Dame, which was much closer to his mom in Indianapolis, during his junior year and signed his letter of intent in February 2007, not too long after the Longhorns had just won the national championship with Vince Young at the helm. He enrolled early at UT in January 2007 and began working with the team for spring workouts and the spring game. During this time spent with his teammates, he started hooking up with the wrong crowd, specifically an older player on the roster, a junior named Robert Joseph. On July 27, 2007, a week before he turned 18, Jones was arrested, along with Longhorns teammate Robert Joseph, then a 20-year-old safety, with armed robbery of a southeast Austin apartment. Jones, according to the police report, was armed with a handgun and threatened to kill a 14-year-old who was in the apartment. Jones and Joseph stole cash, cell phones, and video game equipment from the residence, according to court documents. Texas coach Mack Brown made a swift decision, suspending and eventually releasing Jones from the program. In June 2008, Jones and Joseph pleaded guilty to a felony charge of robbery. Jones was sentenced to 30 days in the Travis County Jail and placed on 10 years probation with 340 hours of community service. Jones never played a snap for the Longhorns. The University of Texas forced him out of the on-campus dorms, which forced Jones to live out of his car. These events would lead to a downward spiral and deep depression. Jones would get 2 other opportunities to play college football at UTEP in 2008 and Tarleton State in 2009. The transition back to El Paso was not easy, as Jones was motivated to leave El Paso in the first place. You can imagine he was feeling embarrassed and disappointed. Jones felt alone when moving back to El Paso. He enrolled at UTEP, but the experiment would fail. Jones was hit by a car and tore 3 ligaments in his knee, which led to Jones deciding not to attempt to play for the Miners, and instead he moved to Stephenville, Texas to enroll at Tarleton State. He would play in 11 games, totaling 29 tackles. After 2009, his playing career had officially ended. He returned to El Paso even further into a state of depression. He would eventually begin delving into drugs such as Xanax, spice, which is a synthetic marijuana, and cocaine. Andre would have binges of months at a time smoking the spice, a drug known to cause many health concerns, including heart attacks. Eventually, Andre would begin selling drugs as well. On August 17, 2012, Jones was arrested again. El Paso police said they found 34 grams of crack cocaine in small bags in a bedroom at his house. The case would be dismissed in spring 2013. After this, Andre would keep battling depression and drug addiction. He tried his most to feel normal. He would begin dating a girl, but his vices were just too strong. The day after proposing to his then-girlfriend, Andre Jones would be found dead at an El Paso hotel on February 14, 2014, at the age of 24. Jones had cocaine, 3 prescription painkillers, sedatives, and marijuana in his system. It also showed that he suffered from hardening of the arteries and a thickened heart. His death was ruled an accident. What if he did not enroll early at UT? What if he decided to go to Notre Dame instead, closer to his mom and also the team that was second on his list? What if he did not try to fit in with an older player on the Longhorns national championship team? All the mistakes Andre made was before the age of 24. He was arrested and charged for his first crime at the age of 17. He was still a kid, and ultimately these mistakes led to a downward spiral of a once generational defensive tackle. It was a cultural transition from El Paso High School Football to the University of Texas, Austin just too much? We will retell his story through the road to glory to bring light to Andre Jones, to honor him. Let's take Andre Jones to the greatness he was destined for. Rest in peace, Andre Jones. We're selecting our teams. Obviously, we're going to select the Longhorns. We're going to select Notre Dame. The third team we'll select is probably Northwestern, because that would have made the most sense. Northwestern's in Illinois, I believe. So, and that was close to his mom. So we're going to go ahead and select Northwestern, and that'll be our top 3. Now we can begin our road to glory. We're rated as 74 on the Spark rating. So actually, I feel like the best way to do a RTG, especially the high school games, the best way to do an RTG is definitely a highlight-like thing. So I'm going to take my time and record, individually. I have the first 2 episodes containing just the high school games, the highlights and all that. I'll probably play this week and probably save the rest of the games for later. We have 11 games to play. Let's take Andre Jones to glory, man. Let's take him to glory. All right, Andre, let's get him, man. Oh, that dude stole my tackle. Oh, give me some points for a tackle right there, bro. Oh, I got a hit on the quarterback. Let's go, though. And we're up 24-7. And he throws that out of bounds. That was my pressure. Another pressure, we have interest from UTEP, which obviously that's our hometown team, so we're going to go ahead and add them. This is our first game at our home stadium here in El Paso, Texas at Andress High School. Yeah, I get the sack. Let's go. Andre Jones with his first sack of the season, man. Let's go. Push that center right into the quarterback's pocket, and then I just destroy that quarterback's leg. Come on, Andre. Let's get him. And I get a hit on the quarterback at least. Here we go. Another highlight for Andre. We get a tackle, man. Let's go. Honestly, Andre is so big, he should have just thrown that little boy 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but whatever. In high school, Andre Jones averaged 82 tackles a season, which, as a defensive tackle, that is insane. No wonder he was a 4-star recruit. And we score, finally.
Fatality.
Oh, I pancaked somebody. Sat that center on his butt. Nice, and we get the sack. Let's go. Let's go, Andre. That's what I'm talking about, my boy. There you go. That's our second victory of the season. We're 2-0 so far. Andre getting the sack, man. We gained 149 recruiting points. Made 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. That game, we get a scholarship offer from UTEP, our hometown.